So you've finally hired someone to help with your interior design business, but now you're spending more time explaining how to do everything than if you'd just done it yourself? I get it, we've all been there. Now it turns out that the secret isn't finding better people to hire, it's about creating the right systems so that anyone can deliver your level of quality and service. In this video, I'm breaking down how to create SOPs, standard operating procedures, that actually work for interior designers like you, so that you can finally step back from the day-to-day tasks without compromising your standards. So if you've ever felt frustrated watching someone do a task completely differently than the way that you would have done it and not up to your standards, then this video is going to be a game changer, because I'll show you exactly how to capture your processes in a way that's simple to follow and impossible to mess up without taking hours of your time. I'm Kate Hatherall, and here at the Interior Designers Hub, we teach people how to get qualified as interior designers and then how to set up, grow and run their own successful interior design businesses. Now here's what I see happening all of the time. Designers finally take the plunge and hire their first assistant or their first team member. Yay! They're excited about having help, but within a few weeks they're pulling their hair out because nothing is being done the way that they want it done. The client onboarding feels different. Files are being saved with random names that make no sense. The measuring process isn't capturing all of the details that you need, and then don't even get me started on what happens when contracts need to be sent out. Now, most designers think that the problem is that they hired the wrong person, but often this is the real issue, that you're expecting someone to kind of read your mind and to naturally do things the way that you've been doing them for years. But honestly, without clear systems, you just end up becoming a full-time trainer and corrector instead of a designer. You're constantly interrupted with questions, having to redo work that wasn't done to your standards. Or worse, discovering mistakes after they've already affected your client experience, and that can impact your reputation. Now I get it, the frustration is real, and I know how frustrating and disheartening it can be when you thought that hiring help was going to give you some more freedom, not more headaches. So let's talk about what an SOP actually is, because I do think there's some confusion around this. So an SOP, or standard operating procedure, is quite simply a step-by-step guide that shows someone exactly how you want a specific task to be done in your business. You can kind of think of it a bit like a recipe. So when you follow a recipe, you get consistent results every time if it's followed properly, regardless of who's doing the cooking. And essentially that's what an SOP does for your business. Now, some people don't like the idea of SOPs because they feel they might limit their creativity or make your service feel formulaic to clients. But in actual fact, what they do is they free up your creative energy because they help to handle all of that administrative and procedural stuff that can actually drain your time and your mental space. So when your team member knows exactly how to handle client onboarding, how to handle file organisation and procurement processes and all of those things, then you get to focus on what you do best. Now the key is understanding that SOPs aren't about controlling every single detail, they're about ensuring consistency in the areas that matter most, so your client experience, your quality standards and your business operations. Now, when it's done right, your clients will actually experience a more personalised service because your team has got more time to respond and more headspace to focus on the creative and the relationship aspects of the project. Now, I know that the biggest challenge is knowing where to start without feeling overwhelmed with it all. So I've developed a very simple framework for you that really works. So first, don't try to document everything at once. Pick the 3 processes that either take up most of your time or cause the most confusion when someone else tries to do them. So what are the bits that you're always correcting? Now, based on what I see with our members, these fall into some common categories. They're usually to do with client onboarding, file organisation and naming conventions, and then measuring processes or contract management. So here's how to capture a process without it becoming a massive headache for you, and it really doesn't need to be. So the next time you're doing one of these tasks, Simply record yourself doing it. And it doesn't have to be a fancy video. You can use your phone or some free screen capture software if you're recording your computer screen, or if it's just you doing something, then just record yourself on your phone talking through the steps. If it's something like measuring a space, just film yourself doing it and talk through it. Now, as you're doing that task, make sure that you're narrating what you're doing and explaining why. So for example, now I'm creating a new folder for this client, and I always name it with the date first, then the client's surname, then the project. So it would be 2025-01-15 Smith Living Room Redesign, for example. This way, all of our projects stay in chronological order when they're filed, and then we can really find them easily when we need to refer back to them. Once you've recorded yourself, then you can either transcribe it into a simple document, and there are lots of softwares that do that, or just keep it as a video tutorial for your team member to follow. You want to keep it as simple as possible. Now, the magic happens when you include the why behind each step. So don't just say, save the file in the projects folder, explain why. So we save the file in the projects folder so we always know where to find client work, and it stays separate from our general business files. When your team member understands the reasoning behind your processes too, they can make better decisions when unexpected situations come up, and it helps to educate them more broadly. So for your first SOP, I recommend starting with something like client onboarding, because this sets the tone for your entire client relationship. So document every step from the initial inquiry to the first design meeting. Include things like, how quickly do you respond to inquiries? What information do you gather in that very first conversation? How do you schedule a consultation after that? What documents do you send out before the meeting? And how do you prepare the client for what to expect or what they need to prepare? So once you've got client onboarding sorted, then move on to something like your file organisation system. Now, I know this might seem boring, but it's absolutely crucial. So document your naming conventions, your folder structures, and where different types of document live. So for example, do photos go in a separate folder from technical drawings? Or how do you name different versions of your floor plan so that revisions are clear? Where do you keep supplier information and product specifications? Now, the third SOP I'd tackle is whichever administrative process takes up most of your time, whether that's contract creation, procurement, managing payments and invoicing, whatever it is. Now remember, you do not need to create a perfect 50-page manual. A simple step-by-step guide, either videoed or written down, that someone can follow along with to get the same result that you would, is all you need. And here's a tip that's going to save you loads of time as well. Create these SOPs as you naturally do these tasks anyway, so you don't need to set aside any time to do this at all to write these procedures. Just commit to remembering to document one process, maybe each week, as you're doing it as part of your regular work. And within a couple of months, you're going to have a solid foundation of SOPs that are going to transform how smoothly your business runs. Now, the best part, once you've got those systems in place, training new team members becomes so much easier. So instead of spending hours explaining everything from scratch, you can literally just hand them over the SOPs, and they'll be able to maintain your standards from day one. And they'll also feel empowered that they don't have to keep asking you as well. All right, so if you've liked this video and found it helpful, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel, because I share practical business advice for interior designers every week. I'll see you next time.